Welcome to the Well Said Podcast, the podcast for inspiring as well as aspiring authors and speakers. Now, here's your host, dynamic author and speaker, Cedric L. Threets.
Well, welcome everybody to the Well Said Podcast. As I always say, welcome great people. Why do I call you great people? Because, hey, somebody's got to be great today, and it might as well be you. Welcome once again to the Well Said Podcast, the podcast for inspiring as well as aspiring authors and speakers. Today, you are going to be inspired by a young lady that I've been knowing a while. It's going to be great. But before I get into the interview, you know what to do. I need you to hit that like, that subscribe. I need you to share this with your friends. Anybody who is interested in writing and speaking, anything of that nature, let them know about the podcast because this is going to be great. I am so excited today because this is my very first guest. You know, I came on the other day and I did my maiden voyage, so to speak, where I basically just introduced myself and talked about the history of how I got started as an author and a speaker and all of that good stuff and shared some of my books. But my goal is to interview other authors and speakers and let them talk about their books and hopefully share their platform and give them some exposure and just teach you some things, and you'll learn a lot from them. So that's my goal. I want to do interviews. From time to time, I will talk, but you don't want to hear me running my mouth. I got some exciting guests lined up. Today, I have Miss Joyce E. Brooks with me. And the E stands for elegant and excellence and all that other good stuff. That's what the E stands for. But I'm going to read her bio right here. Joyce E. Brooks is owner and managing member of Brooks Consulting, LLC, whose mission is to assist businesses and organizations, help them gain a competitive advantage by focusing on leadership development, organizational strategy, and individual well-being. Joyce is best known for developing customized programs on stress awareness, managing change, leadership development, and team building. Team building, wow. Joyce E. Brooks holds a Bachelor of Science degree in electrical engineering from the University of South Alabama and a master's degree in electrical engineering from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. She retired from Alabama Power after 21 years of loyal service. Joyce is the author of Self-Inflicted Overload. Also, Stress Less and Live More, It Ain't Over, and Shift Happens. Through her work, she encourages individuals to live a more balanced, stress-free, and fulfilling life. Joyce has now set her sights on encouraging the next generation, the millennials, K-5, tweens, and teens, with the release of her first children's/young adult books titled The Power of Two Words, A Little Motherly Advice, and Mr. Brown, Will You Please Open the Door? Joyce's journey and purpose is authentic and inspiring. As a mother, a two-time cancer survivor, entrepreneur, artist, and widow, she wakes up every morning with three little words on her mind. It ain't over. Joyce lives out her purpose by demonstrating and encouraging others to live a stress-free and fulfilling life. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to my dear friend, the lovely and talented Miss Joyce E. Brooks. How you doing, Joyce?
I am excellent, and thank you for allowing me to be your first guest on Well Said Podcast. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. And I don't know if you remember, we were at an event together last year at my granddaughter and my grandson's school. We were out there at the playground, and they had us out there with our books and stuff. And I was telling you that I was going to do this podcast, and you looked me in the eye. You said, I'm going to be your very first guest.
I told you. See, I spoke that out into the
You
universe
did.
and it
You
came
did
back.
it. And I am so glad you did. So just I read the bio, but tell the people a little more about yourself. What do you know? What do you want people to know about Miss Joyce E. Brooks?
I am who I am, and I don't apologize for it. I'm thankful that I've been blessed with a lot of skills and abilities. I mean, I go from the technical side at one point with engineering to the artistic side with writing and painting.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love that I am comfortable in my own skin and no longer. It was a time when I was in corporate environments and different things where you felt like you had to minimize yourself to make others comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I am so over that.
Wow.
I love
Wow.
life. I love seeing lights come on when I go to schools and talk to students. But I also love working with adults, especially those who may have encountered some setbacks or
Mm-hmm.
challenges. Because when you first meet me, I don't look like what I've been through.
Amen to that.
And so once, I meet someone who's saying, well, I'm divorced and well, this, and I say, well, I'm a two-time cancer survivor, single parent, and a widow. And I'm like, okay, what else you got?
Wow. That's awesome. And you mentioned painting too. You mentioned the books and speaking and visiting schools, but I'm interested in the painting because you told me a story of how this painting thing got started, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Tell the people how you got started with painting.
Well, what happened was it was after I had been diagnosed with breast cancer the first time. And I had been declared cancer free, and I went to this event just trying a evening, relaxing evening out at Sloss Furnace. And what they
Mhm,
had for the guests to do, you could dance, paint, eat, drink, or all the above.
mhm,
But I had never, picked up a brush before. So I said, well, I'm going to go paint. And so I started painting, and they had guest artists from the Birmingham area there to assist because it was a fundraiser.
mhm.
And one of the artists came over and complimented me on my creation. And she asked me how long had I been painting. I said for about 45 minutes. And she said, no, 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 I don't mean tonight. I mean, how long have you been painting? I said, 45 minutes. And she said, well, if you can paint like this for the first time in July in this hot, humid weather and create this, you got to continue. You definitely got something. And from there, I just continued. It was kind of like a hidden little gift inside of me that had never had an opportunity to come out. And
Mhm.
maybe it hadn't came out because I was so, stressed and trying to do the corporate technical thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I thought that was great. You said 45 minutes, and she thought you were just talking about you had started on that painting for 45 minutes, but you were talking about, hey, I just started painting literally.
Tonight.
And your paintings are awesome. They're beautiful. We'll have you come back and showcase some of your paintings and stuff too. And I thought that was great.
Okay.
So many talents, and that's great. So now the book that we are showcasing today, you mentioned several books. So the book that we are showcasing today, and what's the title of that book?
Shift happens.
Shift happens. And now when you first look at it, I know you guys who are listening to the audio, you can't see the cover. But for you guys on YouTube, you look at this cover, and when you first look at it, the SHIT are bold red, and you can hardly see the F. So you think it's a slogan that people use all the time saying that four-letter word happens. But when you really look at it, it says shift happens. And shift does happen in our life. Tell us a little bit about shift happens.
Well, Shift Happens came about in 2019. I was celebrating being cancer free.
Hmm.
10 years cancer free. Has literally went to lunch with my girlfriends. Yep, I was so happy. And I went for my annual checkup a couple of weeks after that, and they diagnosed me again.
Mm.
And it blindsided me, caught me off guard. And the diagnosis and the treatment, everything was fast tracked.
Mm-hmm.
Diagnosed in February. I actually had surgery in April. But during that time, I kept writing. I was journaling and sending emails to a small group of friends because they would say, "Well, how you doing?" And I end up, I'm long-winded, so everything that I wrote turned into like a mini paper about how I was feeling today.
Yeah.
And as the days went by and the emails went out over that period from February all the way up to October,
Mm-hmm.
one of my friends said, what you wrote really, whether you have cancer or not, you can identify with it because all of us are oftentimes experience unexpected setbacks or unexpected adversity.
Right.
It could be the death of a loved one, a death of a job, a
Mm-hmm.
death of a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And in my case, it was kind of like a death of my security because at this point I thought I was free from dealing with cancer.
Yeah.
And then it was back. And so, but as I was writing over those months, I noticed a shift in my tone, my energy. It was
Mm.
almost like a grieving process. I was in denial at first. I
Mm-hmm.
was angry. I negotiated with God, but finally, by the time I got to the point of acceptance and realizing this is just another shift in my life. I've been
Wow.
shifting all my life from one
Mm-hmm.
season from being single to
Mm-hmm.
being married to having children, becoming a widow.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
so for me to especially cover the book represents that when you first go through something, you don't think it's a shift. You think it's some
Mm-hmm.
mhm. Okay. I know this is a clean show, but
It's some
stuff
crap. We
happens.
can say crap. We can say
Crap happens.
right.
But it's all about your perspective
Right.
because some of us may see the same or experience the same occurrence and say it's some crap, and
Mm-hmm.
someone else will say, "Oh, this is an opportunity."
Right. Right. And I like that because I can relate to, well, as we say, life be lifing. That's
Yeah,
that's what it does. Life be lifing. And I can relate to it, the death of a job, because I myself, I worked for a corporation here in Birmingham for 19 years. I was 2 months shy of having 20 years with this company. I walked in the door on a Monday and they said, tomorrow's your last day. So just like that, that was my shift right there. And it was some,
crap.
yeah. So now is this was this your first book or how
Oh
many?
no,
Okay.
no.
Which one was this in your lineage, as we say?
I think this is number 5. Let's
Okay.
see. Let's see. I had to come prepared. My
Hmm.
first book was Self-Inflicted Overload.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my very first book.
I
And
remember going to your book signing with that one up at Vulcan.
yeah,
That was
and do you
great.
know I still do training and speeches based upon this book,
Wow. That's
you know.
great.
So that's one.
Hmm.
Stress less and live more. I don't have that one with me. That's my what I call my tabletop pocketbook. But
Okay.
then after that, I wrote It Ain't Over.
It ain't over.
And that, and that followed me retiring from the power company and
Hmm.
also during the time that I became a widow.
Hmm.
So then, because I became a widow, I always wondered if my husband had known he was not going to be here to see the boys grow up,
Hmm.
what advice would have
Okay.
given them.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, me being me, I said, well, if something happened to me, they're going to know what I thought. So I wrote The Power of Two Words, a little motherly advice, you
Ah.
know. And it's in this book, I call it my Reader's Digest version because every topic is explained in a 100 words or less. Like I would encourage my sons to stop worrying. Don't
Okay.
worry about
Hmm.
life. And I explain it to them, what's my wisdom, motherly advice as relate to that. And then I got into the children's book world. My favorite, Mr. Brown, will you please open the door? And every book I've written, something happened to, motivate me to do it. I was at a elementary school and a little girl said she wanted to be a cook, and her classmates laughed. And of course, I cleaned it up, encouraged her and everything. But I left the school saying, how many children have dreams that they don't have a support system around them to say, don't worry about what anybody say. You
Right.
pursue your dream and you dream big. So that's that book. And then that's when, after that, Shift Happens came in.
Okay.
And then my last, most recent book is one in a series. I have this dream to make my children books a series with
Okay.
the same characters. The
Yeah.
first book was to help children to dream big and believe in themselves. And this second book is about sharing and caring for others.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So what's the character's name in the book, in the series?
Destiny and Trevor.
Okay, Destiny and Trevor. And I'm glad you're doing a series. That's something that I'm working on right now myself. And it's hard for me to do because my mind goes in so many different directions. I'll start on one and then I start doing something else. But it's interesting too that I like all of your books have a message. They have a message. Even the what is it, the self-inflicted overload
Yep,
with the
self-inflicted
stress and
overload.
stuff. I was actually speaking to a group of daycare center directors today, talking about my latest thing is I'm talking to teachers about their health and well-being, because if they're not right, then the students can't be right. So I'm trying to encourage them to take care of their self. And I like that self-inflicted overload. We were talking about that today. And even with the children's books, encouraging them to dream and do other things. That's what it's really all about. And that's the beauty of what we do. So
Yeah,
now are your books self-published?
self-published, and you can learn more about them by going to my website, which is joyceebrooks.com.
Joyce E Brooks. Make sure you put the E in there too.
Yeah, it's JOYCEE Brooks.com. It's two E's in the middle.
Right, right. Yeah, JoyceEBrooks.com.
Yes.
And they can get them there. So now when you do your self-publishing, how does that process work? How do you go through it?
Okay. My first step is it usually comes from journaling. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I journal almost every day.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I have my thoughts and ideas in handwritten. Then when I decide, okay, it's time, okay, I'm going to write this book. Then I outline it. When I outline a book, I come up with titles like many newspaper articles.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. For example, like if I look at It Ain't Over, if somebody was reading this book and someone said, I don't have time to read this whole book, let me just look at some of the titles of the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So I write by chapters, and you might say, what is this? What not to do?
Mm-hmm.
What not to do? That's an interesting one. 360-degree relationships. And then I just write about that. So I write my outline, what I call headlines. What are my
Mm-hmm.
headlines of my chapters? Then I write
Okay.
that chapter. I put it all together. Then I call my dear friend who's a retired editor for I forgot what company she worked for, but she's retired, and I'll forward her for the first reading, and then I say, you got to go to work. You gotta fix it for me, because at first, before I wrote my first book, I was very intimidated by the ideal of writing a book. The
Mm-hmm.
engineer side was extremely strong. I wanted to know how many pages constitutes a book,
Mm-hmm.
or would it be considered a novel? How
Right.
many chapters do you supposed to have?
Mm-hmm.
Who 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 does the copyright? Who does? And I just bunch of technical stuff that has nothing to do with writing.
Right.
And I went to a luncheon. I don't recall who the speaker was, but she was an author. And she said, so often beautiful stories are buried in the cemetery
Mm-hmm.
because individuals never put it down on paper. And she said, people usually are paralyzed by writing because they're trying to figure out the technical side of writing. Who's going to edit? Does
Right.
this sound right? And she said, God gifted you with the story.
Mm.
You have the story.
Mm-hmm.
He gifted other people to edit it. He
Mm.
gifted somebody else to make the cover.
Right.
He gifted somebody else to print it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other individuals, but you were given the story. Do your part. So once I do the story, then I call in all the other people who have their
Mm-hmm.
expertise
Yeah.
to do the cover artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, here in Birmingham, there's a print company, Rocky Heights Publishing and Binding, that
Yeah.
actually prints locally,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. And then once I get the approval of the PDF file from my editor, and we got my cover art from whoever I can find to do that for me at that time, I send it to them. They send me a copy back. Oh, in the meantime, I forgot. I also go to copyright.gov
Mm-hmm.
and upload my information. So I have the copyrights to everything I've written. Now, it takes a few months to get it back, but I have the actual document from our U.S. government copyright
Mm-hmm.
office that
Yeah.
all my works have been copyrighted.
That's great. That is awesome. And there's a charge for that. The price, I know the price has gone up recently at the copyright. I think it's what, about $65 now, which is
I think
still nothing
nothing
compared
to,
to,
to protect your work.
right. And it's protected for, what is it? Is it the life of the author plus 75 years or something like that?
Some
So
I
if
know it's for
anybody,
the life of the author.
yeah.
Yes.
So if anybody has questions about that, I get asked that all the time. What about copyrights and how long does it last? So in addition to being an author and a former engineer and a painter, a mother and all this, what else is on the docket? What's in the future for Miss Joyce E. Brooks?
Well, I've been dibble dabbling in home renovations.
Okay.
You know, actually, it started. My sister had a home that her and her husband was going to flip, and it didn't work out. And she
Hmm.
was going to sell the home, and I was like, hold up, wait a minute." I knew it was in a good location and
Hmm.
everything. We worked out a deal, and I blindly put together this team of individuals, and it was kind of funny, Cedric. All of them were about old enough, if not to be my dad, but my granddad. Because over time I've needed a plumber, so I
Hmm.
called my plumber.
Yeah.
After I called a plumber, I said, anybody who can fix windows? And he'll tell me another person.
Yeah.
And I had this crew where all I heard was, "Come here, baby girl. Come here. Let me show you something. Let me show you something." You know. So I was the general contractor or project manager, and that was
Mm.
in 2017. And
Wow.
since that time, one of the individuals that was on the crew, he said that he can't ever find a reliable helper.
Hmm.
And I'm retired. I'm like, well, what do you need a reliable helper? He said, well, if I'm going up in somebody attic doing some work, I need somebody on site in case I fall out the ceiling to dial 911. You know. So for the last year or so, I've been tagging along as a helper and have reached a point where I'm in one space working on something,
Hmm.
taking down light fixtures. I mean, just acting like I'm a little junior apprentice.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy that. I mean, I redid my grandmother's home. My sister was getting ready to sell it, and
Hmm.
we practically gutted it and started over.
Wow.
And I mean, I know how to put in insulation. I know how to install lights,
Well, see
check the
that
voltage on a plug.
you are way ahead of me. I tell people I can barely screw in a light bulb, and I
Okay.
screw it in crooked. So I leave that to people who know what they're doing. And That's great. I think that is so awesome. And it just shows people that there's so much out here that we can do. And like one of your books says, it ain't over, because you are a true testament that it ain't over. All the things you've been through, all this shift that has happened in your life, you're showing people, you are a living witness, a living testimony that it ain't over. So thank you so much, Miss Joyce E. Brooks,
Well,
for
thank
coming on
you.
the Well Said podcast, being my very first, my inaugural guest.
Well, thank you. I'm honored that you would extend this invitation to me, and I wish you much success. And I look forward to seeing what other authors you invite to hear their
Yeah,
perspective on writing and things. And
yeah.
I thank you so much.
Well, you are welcome. Thank you for coming on and sharing all of your wisdom with us. Well, there you have it, people. Wow. What can I say? I mean, it was an awesome, awesome interview. Miss Joyce E. Brooks. Check her out on joyceebrooks.com. Check out all of her books and the other things that she is doing. She has some incredible information on there. I thank all of you once again for subscribing and hitting that like button and all of the other things that you're doing. Share this with your friends now, because we want everybody who is interested in knowing more about writing and speaking, we want them to know about it. So we want them to just come on here and learn from great people such as Miss Joyce E. Brooks and all of the other authors and speakers. Yes.
One more thing. If
Uh-huh.
by some chance somebody who's listening has an upcoming event or
Mhm.
something that they need someone to come out and inspire, motivate, challenge,
Yeah.
or just laugh with,
Right.
I'm available for that as well.
Oh wow. And that information is on your website also, right? And
Yes.
she's a great speaker. I'm not just saying that because she's on here. We actually did an event together years ago. We did it. And she was on the docket, and two more awesome speakers who are friends of ours. We did this little conference, our own little conference. It was called the Thrive Conference. So
Yeah.
she is a great speaker. You will not be disappointed if you just have her come and encourage your people and your organization for whatever. So thanks again, Miss Joyce. I really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for tuning in to the Well Said podcast. Remember what I always tell you: like, subscribe, but most of all, I want you to go out and be great. Why? Because somebody's got to be great today, and it might as well be you. Take care.
Bye bye.
Thanks for listening to the Well Said podcast. Tune in next time for another exciting and informative edition. If you need help on how to become an author or speaker, contact Cedric at cedrictreat.com. And thanks again for listening to the Well Said podcast.